Good morning. Welcome to TERRA at Home. Happy Thanksgiving weekend. I'm here with Amii, and we're officially in fall and enjoying the colors and the weather, whatever it may bring us, right? Because that's what fall does.
Yeah.
But we want to talk about as we move from fall into winter. And again, this is a really great time of year, still even now, to be outdoors planting.
Absolutely. Fall
Right.
is a
Good
great
weather.
time of year to plant.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about some plants that really give you, and a lot of times when you are planting, say, a full bed outside, or you're just changing one plant up, you want to consider, because of where we live, some of the sort of winter interest as well, right?
Yes.
And fall and winter interest.
Yes.
So we're going to start off and show some plants that will give your garden some change as you move through the seasons.
Yeah, that's one thing that we do. A lot of people like to shop in May, and we do that one-time shop, and we don't consider what our gardens look like through the seasons. So I've grabbed some plants that I think are great plants for the fall and even into winter that we can have a look at. So just over here, I've got the burning bush on the far outside.
Oh, right, way over there. Yep.
That one there turns the brightest shade of red in the fall and is so popular. That is one that people know, and you'll drive by someone's house and you'll go, what is that bright red thing?
Right.
And it's typically that.
And it's neat because, especially if you're a neighbor and you've been living in the area and you've been seeing that it's green all summer, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, did they just plant something new?
Yeah,
that's a good one.
We'll get people coming into our garden center saying, I saw this thing and it's bright red and it's leafy, and that's quite commonly what it is.
Okay.
Other things that we look at are something like, for instance, this 9-bark here.
This is nice.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful plant, quite dwarf, doesn't need a lot of care or pruning. But what's really neat about it is that in the winter, when there aren't any leaves, there are red branches.
So that red branch will really stand out. So again, there's your winter interest right there.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
So,
nice.
right in front, I just actually brought blueberries. So that's something that now that a lot of people are getting more into growing edibles in their gardens. But then what do these edibles look like in the off season? Blueberries are fantastic. They go bright red. They look so great in fall.
That's cool.
And you'll have fruit right through the summer months, and once the fruit is gone, you start turning this bright red color.
Red.
Yeah, so that's
Nice.
something great.
Okay.
Another one that people love is this sumac. So it's more of a dwarf sumac. It's called Tiger Eyes, and it's stunning. It's got really neat a leaf pattern on it, and the colors change in this one so fantastically. So it's going to go right from this bright yellow lime green color, and then it goes bright orange and bright red.
Nice.
Super popular. And then we've even got, right in front of us here, a Japanese maple.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was thinking it was Japanese maple to me, but I was noticing it had a green leaf, so I didn't realize that
The one I grabbed is an emerald lace one, but the reason I grabbed that one to show you today was the branching habit on it.
Yes.
So really neat. When there aren't any leaves, there's these great branches that droop right down.
So there you go.
Yeah, super
right?
fun
So
to put
again,
Christmas lights on.
I was going to say, and that's something you have to consider. You have to look at your garden. You know, if you just have these sort of a plant of flowering perennials all in your garden, and they don't have any interest, there's nothing. And in the winter, you're like, where am I going to put my lights? So it does give you some options to maybe putting some evergreens and putting some trees like that.
Exactly. Other things that I've grabbed here are these couple of perennials, flowering perennials. In October, they're not necessarily in flower in your garden, but what's really great to mention about them is the seed heads on them. So for instance, on this echinacea, it's got this giant seed head right there. And then this rudbeckia here, it's going to have a nice seed head on it in the fall.
Okay.
The birds love that. So at this time of year, the birds are starting to lose sources of food, and they're looking for different sources of food. So something like this is great to have. And you leave the seed heads on, and then they'll actually start coming to your garden to get food from them.
And there you go. So that's key that you said that, because a lot of times people are just in the fall, they're just pruning back everything, right? But leave it the way it is. And,
that's one thing that people don't necessarily think of are the little interesting things about the plants in the fall. Seed heads are great. Another one that's really good for that exact thing is the ornamental grasses that I have just in front of us here.
Yes, and grasses are great. Some people just really love them, and they are so beautiful in the summer, and they're flowy with the breeze and everything like that. But let's talk about what happens with them as they
Well, that's the one thing. As the season, grasses get better as the season goes. So they kind of take a while to start in the spring, but then as the season goes, they get nice and bushy and stuff. And then comes late summer, and you get these gorgeous plumes on them. And a lot of ornamental grasses get those plumes. There's ones that are variegated, so you have them and they have green and white leaves, and those are great. And then there's ones that bring out the plumes, and
you can just imagine, so if you've planted mums in your garden and you have that coming up, you're just getting this really full fall feel.
Absolutely.
With the plumes, and it feels very like country, and just
it does. And a lot of people are starting to plant ornamental grasses as like for privacy, as like a privacy screen in a row. I know I did it personally myself, and I fully intend to leave the plumes on for the winter because it just adds that interest to my garden through the winter when there is nothing else. And then you cut them back in the spring and they regrow from the bottom, but it does carry you kind of through that.
Okay, so keep them through the winter and then cut them back in the spring.
Yes.
Like pretty early
A lot
spring,
of people
right?
do cut back in the fall,
yes,
but I encourage you to leave them on in the winter because it does add that bit of interest to your garden where there would be nothing, there's something. Right?
You know, I think it's good for people to really look into that, you know, and it's good to ask some questions when you come into Terra because a lot of times, as you say, people are just clearing out their gardens in the fall and you could be missing out on a lot of opportunity to have some interest in the winter.
It's very typical. That's something that we always do. We clean up our gardens in the fall. We put them to bed in the fall, as we should. There's a lot of things that serve, you know, it serves them well. But yeah, there's definitely things that we can keep. For sure. Yeah.
Now, when planting in the fall, let's talk about some of the, some of the tips for people. You know, should you still be fertilizing? Should you be careful about staying away a little bit from maybe perhaps some frosty nights when you're just planting something first?
I would say stay away from the frost because we like to plant just before the risk of frost, but October is still a great time to do it.
Right.
A little bit of frost isn't going to hurt nursery stock because it is hardy. What it may do to the nursery stock is potentially frost some of the leaves, the foliage. So it may damage that. It's not going to damage the plant itself necessarily. Should you fertilize? Absolutely.
Yes.
We encourage you to use a quick start, a transplant fertilizer, something that will help your roots set.
Okay.
So you should definitely still be using that, and amending your soil is really important. So you dig your hole, and then you want to have something like a triple mix that you would amend with your existing soil and then backfill to plant your shrub. And another thing that's really important in the fall is watering your plants. So watering them really, really well into the frost. You want, when the ground freezes, you want that plant to have a lot of moisture around it. You don't want it to be bone dry, and because then it actually, like, it's not good for the plant. The chances are it won't root out, it won't overwinter like that, and then you'll have something die through the winter, and you won't know why, but quite often it's because it wasn't watered well going into it. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't think that they really necessarily need to water as much in the fall as, or you know, it's about to frost or snow, so I don't need to do that. But you really do need to make sure you have that protection.
Whenever you transplant any type of plant, any nursery stock especially, you want to make sure it's watered well and watered with a transplant fertilizer. It's going to give you your best success. Absolutely.
So really, October right now, for the next few weeks, go ahead and do your planting. Once we do know once we hit November, we do have risks of frost.
Basically, you can plant until the ground freezes. So when the ground starts to freeze, that is when you're done.
Very good. Okay, so look at your garden right now, see what maybe it needs. And again, you know, it's great time. Don't just go in May to your garden center. Go now and find something with interest. And again, take a look at your garden and see what you wish you had. You know, you wish you had maybe some more color. You had some leaves that were changing, and you want to create that winter interest. So this is a good time to do it.
It is.
And again, you're going to have textures and color changes, and your neighbors will be jealous.
Very good time.
Thank you, Amy. That's
You're
it for
welcome.
now. More Terra at Home to come. When I dream in color. When I think of color, I think of Terra. Make your dreams come true at Terra, where color lives.
Heritage Perennials. Look for us in the blue pots.
The Hamilton Spectator. At work, at home, or on the go. Read us online, in print, or download us to your e-reader. Get the Hamilton Spectator any way you want it.
Good morning, welcome back to Terra at Home. I'm here with Lori Giles from Lori Studios, and you are a photographer.
I am. Yes.
So we decided to have you on the show because it's that time of year. A lot of people do family photos, whether it's for the fall or for leading up to Christmas, right? And sometimes you have to really think ahead on these, and I'm sure there's a lot of planning involved, and people book way in advance.
Yes.
So you keep yourself pretty busy, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I get a lot of people contacting me in the fall.
Yes.
Because everyone loves those fall colors.
Right.
They want beautiful pictures of their family in the fall while everyone's home for Thanksgiving. And they also want pictures for their Christmas cards.
Yes. So best to call as soon as possible if you want to get in there, because
Yes.
yeah, again, it's it's hard to read exactly what's going to happen with the leaves and when they're going to be at their peak, but obviously that's the ideal time, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about you a little bit, and how did you get into photography yourself? And generally, it's a very artsy, and it's usually comes with a lot of passion behind it. So
Yeah. So I've always had a love for photography, but it wasn't until high school that I started studying it. So they offered the program at Flamborough Center, where I went to high school, and back then it was all darkrooms. This was before digital came out and before digital made photography available and so much easier for the public.
Right, but it's good that you learn. It's good to learn.
It's nice to
all
learn
of
the history.
it, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. So I started in high school, and then I really enjoyed it, and I decided to pursue it. So from there I went to Humber College. I studied the 2-year program there, and then shortly after I opened up my own business photographing families, babies, weddings,
And that's
headshots.
your focus,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about maybe some tips for people who may attempt to do just a quick one-off shot or a couple shots of their family in the backyard or wherever they're going to be. Let's talk a little bit about location, and if you are shooting outside, where, when you're looking for great locations, what are you looking for?
So for families, I always look for a space that has little distractions for children. So kids can get distracted very easily.
Can
So
they ever?
if a parent chooses a place that has a playground, the kid wants to have nothing to do with having their photograph
That
taken.
is so true. That happened in my first photo shoot. Well, my second one with my son. He was just like looking
Yeah,
that way the whole time.
exactly, yes.
Good point.
Yeah, so I would choose a natural space, such as the setting that we're in right now. So there's not a lot of distractions for kids.
Right.
Kids can just be kids. They can play, they can adventure. You can get down at their level, play with them, and at the same time, just snap a few candid, beautiful photos of your kids being kids.
And I actually, that's kind of a nice way a lot of times that the candid photography is something. There's something to be said about that, right? You're almost catching more of a true character of somebody when they're in the middle of a laugh, or when they
Exactly.
are playing with their brothers, their siblings, versus just sit straight pose. Because sometimes, kids will just do the little, kind of funny, just straight grin, right, or whatever, right? So
Exactly.
it's fun to get them playing in their own environment. Okay, so besides that, you got to think about lighting. What time of day is optimal
So
for shooting?
if you have no choice and you have to shoot in midday, the best spot to shoot in is in the shadows or with the sun behind you.
Okay.
Otherwise, when the sun is above you, and it casts really strong shadows on your face.
And it makes it very, very unflattering
It's
sometimes.
very
right?
unflattering.
You can age yourself
Exactly.
like extremely.
Yes, yeah, it's incredibly unflattering. So always keep the sun behind you or work in the shadows.
Okay.
And then if you have the option to shoot close to sunrise or sunset, I would recommend shooting within about an hour of sunrise or sunset. Some photographers refer to it as magic hour. The light just is really soft, it's really beautiful, and no matter what angle you're working with, you usually have flattering light within that hour.
So it's not as sharp a contrast when the
Exactly.
lighting's like that. It's more
Yeah.
diffused, right? And it
Yeah.
just gives overall.
It's really soft and beautiful.
And you can see nowadays, it's just people snapping their own, cell phones around here and there, that they start to kind of identify that, yeah, you know what, still not the same quality as a photographer would shoot, but you can see that, yeah, at this time of day, lighting is really much better than shooting at high noon, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
okay, so that's good. So we've got lighting, we've figured out the location. When it comes to, you were saying about obviously not having distractions for kids. What if you involve a pet? That's got to be interesting as well, too.
A pet can be difficult.
Do you
I mean,
recommend it? But
well, the
sometimes it's
thing
part of
is-
the family, right?
Exactly. The thing, if you have a dog or a cat, I don't think people are going to take their cats with them on a leash to a photo session. But if you have a dog, most of the time that is part of your family. So usually that dog is going to listen to its owner if you have your dog well trained. And so you just have to make the best of it.
Yes. Now, I imagine from your perspective, when you're dealing with children particularly, you're probably you need to be patient, you need to make sure you're getting a variety of shots, but I imagine you try to moving things along pretty quickly. Getting kids to sit still for longer than,
Yeah, they don't.
a long period of time is not good
Kids
unless they're
just
holding a cupcake, right?
Exactly, yeah. Kids just don't sit still. So what I like to do, like when I'm introducing myself to a child for the first time, I like to get down at their level. I like to play with them. I like to interact with them a little bit before I even start taking their picture. Then I become a little bit of their friend.
I was going to say, I can imagine that's a very important part of your job is making a connection with the people you're shooting, particularly children.
Yeah, because they're not going to feel comfortable with me if they don't know who I am, and if all of a sudden like I'm 5'6" or 7 and really tall above them, and they're just little on the ground here. So
and they don't know you.
They don't
and some
know
kids
me.
can be very shy. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so say you have all of a sudden you have this big, I'm going to get the family together, we're going to take a picture, and the weather is not good. You have to go inside.
Okay.
When you're inside, any things that you should avoid? What about lighting? People want to turn on every overhead light, or what do you?
If the group is small enough and you have a large enough window, window lighting is usually the most flattering and best source of light next to flash.
But not standing in front of the window, right?
Yeah.
Not with your back to the window.
Exactly, actually. I see people do that a lot where they turn their back to the window. I'll be photographing a wedding and the bride will be having her back to the window and someone will try and take her picture and they're like, it's just not working. It's just not working. They don't understand why. But you need to have your subject facing the window and the person taking the photo of you with their back to the window.
Because the light behind them is too bright.
It's way too bright.
Way brighter than what's in front of them, right?
And a lot of consumer cameras aren't able to balance that light like a professional camera, so it's better just to have your subject facing the window.
Perfect. Okay, so you also shoot babies, which I can imagine would be quite fun, but again, you're dealing with probably some newborns sometimes too. So
newborns are the easiest. So if you're looking to get those beautiful sleepy photos of your newborn baby, the best time to do it is within about 5 to 10 days of having your baby.
That's the only pure silence you will have for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, exactly. So it's probably the last thing you want to do is put on your makeup, do your hair, put a nice outfit back on after you just had a baby. But if you want those really peaceful photos, that's the time to do it, because you'll be able to move your baby from yourself to your husband to some sort of surface where if it's your couch or a pillow, without
they're
that
still
baby
very
waking.
pliable, right?
Yeah, they don't really wake up.
No. Except for my son. He was a bit of an anomaly though, but we had to double flash him to make him look like he was sleeping. But that's so indicative of his personality. But yeah, they still like to curl up in a little ball, right? So
and they're so sleepy, so it's a really nice time. And then the next best time for babies, I find, is when they start to interact a little bit more.
So like 6 months maybe?
Yeah, between 3 and 6 months, and when they start to sit up and when they start smiling, parents really love those photos of their kids.
Well, we know that you go on location for people, so people can just contact you directly and maybe set up a shoot with you.
Yeah, I work in people's homes and in locations within the GTA.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Best of luck for having me. And your little one that's on its way too.
Thank
Your second. That's it for now. We'll have more TERRA at home. When I dream in color. When I think of color, I think of TERRA. Make your dreams come true at TERRA, where color lives.
You've sat under them and built forts in them. You've swung from them and fell out of them. You've even fallen in love under them. Trees have always held a special place in our hearts and memories. A natural beauty, trees will grow with you and your family and bring color and nature into your world. For your assurance of quality, look for trees and shrubs with the Medallion plant tag. Medallion plants, locally grown, the pride of Niagara. Welcome back to TERRA at Home. We're here with Chef Mark from La Piazza Allegra Restaurant in Hamilton, and we are in October.
We're in October,
and we're
cooking
thinking,
up a storm.
oh yes, thinking all that hearty, good Thanksgiving.
That's right.
So what are we making today?
Making a stuffing.
Okay.
Now, there's a couple ways people look at stuffing. Some people like doing it inside the turkey.
Yes.
I prefer not to. And there's a couple reasons for that. I find that by the time the stuffing cooks, the outside of the bird is really, really dry.
Yes.
And turkey tends to be a drier meat to begin with.
Does.
So I tend to cook my stuffing outside of that. that's number one reason. Number two, if you do undercook it, you have a chance of getting some sort of sickness because it's, the turkey juices have gotten into the middle. So you do have to cook it well done if you do.
I find a lot of people are moving a bit away from, people that I know anyway, from cooking it inside the bird because of those reasons, right? And then you can make a whole, sometimes people will make an extra pan of it anyway, but then you can make a whole lot of it because stuffing's so awesome. You can just eat it with a spoon out of
you
a
have
bowl.
a lot more flexibility in making larger quantities when you don't do it inside the bird.
Yes.
So what we have right here, you can either use sausage meat or ground pork. This is ground pork, and I just started to brown it lightly. We have a mirepoix here. So your carrots, onion, and celery mixture. Okay? And we're going to put that in, and we're going to start sauteing that. We put some salt into that, a little bit of pepper, and some pureed garlic. Okay? And we're just going to let this start sauteing because this is going to be the bulk of our stuffing here.
Lots of good flavors just come from that alone, right?
Tons of flavor is going to come out of that. Now, we have some bread. And this is the bread that we make in the restaurant. You can use any bread that you like. I like using this one because in the restaurant we already spiced the bread and we already seasoned it.
I was just going to say it's herbed and
it's herbed. It's got a little bit of everything in there. And all I'm doing is cutting it into pieces.
Okay.
This is where you get your stuffing, bread stuffing portion of it. And I'm throwing it into cream.
So you're actually using pretty large strips.
Yeah, some fairly large strips. You can make them smaller if you want. But we're going to put them into cream and just let it absorb. This is where a lot of that moisture you're going to get that you would have gotten if you put it inside the bird.
Right.
This is a lot of that moisture. It's going to come from the cream here, so it doesn't dry out.
I was going to say, when we were talking about, only doing it and doing it outside of the bird, that's the one problem some people come by is that the stuffing ends up being often very dry.
Very dry,
right?
That's right.
So soaking it in a bowl of cream.
Yep, we used 18% cream here.
Well, it is Thanksgiving. It's
It
just
is,
one
yeah,
day.
That's right.
Or maybe three in a row, depending how much family and friends you have.
And just keep moving that around, let it absorb. Now, the other ingredients that we have in here, and these are open for variations.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
We have some dried cranberries. We have some walnuts. We have some slivered almonds. We have some raisins.
Okay.
Okay, and then over here we have a demi-glace, and this is a beef demi-glace. So this is going to give it a real hearty depth to the whole stuffing. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take these cranberries. We're going to throw them in there as well. We're going to take our raisins.
There's so many options for stuffings too, right? I mean, there are those, certain spices that people associate with, but or herbs like sage or whatever.
That's right.
But when it comes down to it, it's unbelievable how many different types of stuffings you can have.
Sage is a great herb to use with pork. This one I'm going after more of an Italian style, so I brought over some rosemary, but sage does work very, very well.
Right, yes. This is Italian, so we're going to
go to the rosemary on this one, although Italians cook with sage as well. This one will give it a little bit more of a woodsy, outdoor, a little heartier. So if you want that sage flavor and you still want to follow the recipe as we're doing it here, my suggestion is brine the turkey, and when you put the turkey in brine, put a lot of sage in that, and it'll absorb that savory.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm using a little bit of rosemary, not too much.
I'm a huge fan of rosemary too, though. So as you say, just that real earthy, woodsy flavor that it gives.
It's fantastic. Okay, we have our demi-glace.
Yes.
So we're going to throw in some of the demi. And I also have a little bit of vegetable stock. I'm adding a touch of the vegetable stock, and again, that's just for the moisture, just to help it, so when you're putting it, because you're going to finish this in the oven. So when you put it in the oven, you definitely don't want it to dry out. But if you noticed, I have not put any of the nuts in just yet.
Right. And why is that? What are you?
Well, once the nuts, the oil in the nuts start to heat up, they tend to burn. So if it gets stuck at the bottom of the pan,
want to be careful.
You just want to be careful with that. It's going to cook anyway in there, so you're going to get a little bit of a toasty flavor. There we go. Now, this is where, again, open for your own interpretation. You can put the bread in there and toss it all together and put it into the pan, or you can put that into the pan and then top it with the bread. I tend to put the bread in there, toss it all together. I find that, having that bread in the middle of it, it's just got a nice flavor and kind of picks up on everything else. So you can see how nice and soaked they are.
Now, is this your favorite kind of stuffing, or what's your favorite?
This is up there.
it?
This is definitely up there. I like having that sweetness of the raisins and the cranberries, the crunchiness of the walnuts, and the
There's definitely a lot of
almonds.
textures in there.
Yeah, pine nuts. Sometimes I put pine nuts in there.
That'd be good.
So there it is, all together. And now we're going to add the almonds and the walnuts.
And you did not toast these beforehand.
I did not toast those. That's right. And we're just going to crush these up.
Awesome. There's a lot going on in there. It's good.
This is a nice stuffing. Like I said, it's just got that real woodsy, outdoor, fall feeling to it, which is what you're looking for on
Exactly.
Thanksgiving.
Now, to master stirring without using any type of, that's a whole chef secret. That would be all over my kitchen, and I will never attempt to do so.
So there it is there.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to move this stuff aside here.
So basically, at this point, you will be putting it in the oven for how long?
It varies on your oven. Now, I like to do it on a convection roast.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So a convection roast cooks fairly quickly. I put it a little higher, about 435, 435 to 440. So it'd probably take about 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
But if you want to slow it down, you can slow it down
And
or
let
speed it up.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll finish it off. When I dream in color. When I think of color, I think of TERRA. Make your dreams come true at TERRA, where color lives. Welcome back to TERRA at Home. We're in the kitchen today with Chef Mark from La Piazza Allegra restaurant, and we have the sweet, yummy, savory smells of stuffing in our kitchen right now.
Yeah.
And it's all done. Looks great.
It's all done, yeah. So we put it in the oven for about 25 minutes. Wait until it got nice and brown on the top.
That's like some of the best parts.
Yeah,
sometimes.
you need
Just
a little.
eat the
You need a
top.
little bit of crunchiness there. If you find that it's browning too much, because I did put this on the upper middle rack, just drop it down and let it cook at the bottom half as well.
Okay.
And then when we take it out, you just got to let it sit. You got to let it solidify again.
Okay.
Now, what we did do, which you might not have seen just before we went to the break, was I put some butter on top.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit of butter. But what the butter does too is it just gives that extra savory flavor to it.
Oh, yeah.
And again, don't eat it every day.
No, don't eat it every day.
It's Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving.
You're right.
Now, you can either just scoop it out and put it on the plate as a loose stuffing, or you can try to cut it and see how it comes out. If it'll
We
come
know
out
you
as
really
a
wanted
piece.
to try to do it this way, so.
We're going to try, but we'll see, because it is all loose items. So.
Oh, sure, of course, it's a stuffing. But again, you can find this recipe on our website at terragreenhouses.com, and really just a great option for having different types of stuffing. So we were saying, if you don't put it in the bird, then you can maybe make a couple different stuffings.
That's right.
And the great part about stuffings is you can make them ahead of time, right, for the most part, and bake them so you could make one that's perhaps vegetarian or one that doesn't have
That's
nuts
right.
or whatever, and you can make it, please the crowd. 'Cause stuffing
Please the
generally
crowd.
is pretty awesome.
Can't go wrong.
My favorite part.
And what you see here too is the cranberries, because they went in dry.
Yes.
They rehydrated
Oh,
with
they
the
sure
liquid
did.
in there,
Yeah.
so nice and plump
Plumped right
now,
up.
and they got that sweetness.
And as you said, just again, mix it up. Find different
it up.
ingredients that you like the best. Again, yours is rosemary, but you can put in sage, and
That's right.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you.
great. Love it. All right, that's it for now. Have yourself a great weekend.